Welcome back to Dr. Hollowed. In today's episode, we will take a look at the strangest human interaction people have ever had. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. I was on a student exchange trip to Estonia, where I lost my purse on a bus. The Estonian kids calmly led me to the tram going out of town. After a long ride, we come to this rundown, ghetto-looking neighborhood, and we enter a tall building with broken windows. I'm scared shitless, but I figured since I don't even know where I am and I have no phone, I've got no other option than to trust them. Inside, it's dark with flickering lights, and a large, bitter man with dark leather clothes walks past and lets us through. This just feels bad, not a lost and found kind of place. After going up a few stairs, we come to a door that opens. From the totally dark room comes a short elderly lady who hands me my bag. Everything is there, all my money, my passport, everything. I'm still boggled by this event to this day. How and why did she have my stuff? We went directly there after leaving the bus. A few days ago, I was traveling in Egypt to see the pyramids. It was the middle of the afternoon, there were not many people around, and I was traveling solo. I had a tripod and was framing a shot with a scarf on my head, and sort of covering the camera as well while I was looking at the screen. I had at least 100 meters each side around me when I didn't have any people, and I think I gave maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute to frame the shot. I pop my head out and roll down the scarf, and boom. There is a beautiful young girl standing next to me. She looked Arabic, maybe from Turkey, but was surely not a local because of her style of dressing, boots, blue denim skirt, white top. I got startled and scared for 1 second and looked around to see if anyone was there. There was no one else. This girl didn't have a bag, purse, camera, scarf, nothing. I asked, "Hello. What's up? Are you here to help me click a photo?" She looks at me, moves her right hand to her lower lip, and makes a thinking gesture. Now I am even more scared as to what will happen next. Then she takes her hand, points in the blank space between the two pyramids, and does the thinking gesture again. She hasn't spoken a word till now. I ask her, "I am not sure, do you speak English?" She points towards the blank space between pyramids again. This time she holds her pose while she points for almost 15 seconds. All this is happening while she is half a meter away from me. I take a step back and ask her, "Are you okay?" She snaps back from the pose she was holding, takes a step towards me, and widens her eyes as if to show that she was so angry. Now I was totally freaked out, but I stood my ground. We looked at each other for maybe 15 to 20 more seconds, then she turned around and walked away, really fast. I quickly folded my camera equipment and tripod and tried to follow her at a safe distance to see if she was with a group, out of curiosity. I lost her in the crowd after 5 minutes. Not kidding, if she had to tell me that she was a spirit or something, I would have believed. One New Year's Eve, a friend of mine and I were standing outside of a liquor store. Both of us were underage, but another friend of ours was 21, so he was buying the alcohol for the night. I was smoking a cigarette, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a man approaching. He looked homeless, and I assumed he wanted a cigarette or some change. The first words out of his mouth were, "Happy New Year's, gentlemen. How are you doing?" We both said we were good and commented about how nice it was. Although it was midwinter, it wasn't that cold that year in Chicago. He laughed and said, "Yeah, me too. Y'all got any plans?" We told him we were going to meet up with some friends after our buddy came out of the store. He smiled and said, "Well, y'all be safe now. I got myself a joint from the Mexicans at the car shop. I'm going to go to my spot in the alley, smoke, and put out my sign when I don't want anybody around. Do not disturb the rat in the hole. Then they know, this is the condominium, and leave me alone." My friend and I both looked at each other right after he said that. We were both writers and instantly recognized the beauty of what he had just said. I asked if he wanted a cigarette, but he declined, saying, "Nah, thanks." Our friend came out of the store at that point, and we told him we had to go. He shook our hands and the hand of our other friend and told us again to stay safe. As we were walking away, we heard him shout to us, "Happy New Year." He never asked for change or a cigarette and even declined my offer to have one. He just genuinely wanted to talk to us, which is rare in Chicago. He didn't want anything, but he did give me an anecdote and a phrase that has stuck with me for years: "Do not disturb the rat in the hole." I used to work in a cinema, and like any job that involves dealing with the public, I experienced some weird things. The strangest one for me was a woman in her 40s who came in to see 8 Mile, the Eminem film. She appeared at the front desk about 20 minutes into the film, asking for a refund because the language in that film is terrible. I was slightly surprised that she hadn't realized that would be the case, but we did get people who just showed up and watched whatever was showing without knowing anything about the film, so I figured that was the case here. While I was processing her refund, I said something like Eminem isn't everyone's cup of tea. The response was, well, I enjoy his music, but I don't want to sit through that filthy language in the cinema. Okay, a bit odd, but okay. After she had gone, my colleague came out of the office and asked what that customer had wanted. I explained, and then he told me that he sold her the ticket originally, and she had asked about whether the film had bad language. He described it as frequent and extreme swearing throughout, but she bought a ticket anyway. We were both baffled. I was smoking with a few friends at a playground at a school in rural Maine at like 10 p.m. We had smoked a couple joints and were rolling the last one. Out of the corner of my eye, I see someone walking out of the forest. At first, I thought it might be someone that one of my buddies knew, until one of my friends asked, "Who is that?" And no one answered. So many thoughts ran through my mind at this moment. Who could this possibly be walking through the woods at night without a flashlight or anything? No one said a word. We were all scared as hell, and high as hell, to make matters worse. When the person was around 10 feet from us, my friend turned on his flashlight and pointed it at him. It was a kid, probably around 13 or 14 years old. Hell yeah, I'm probably not getting murdered. He walked up to us and asked us if we could help him out and if we knew a place where he could lie low for a couple days. This kid seems distraught. He looks and sounds like he is about to cry. We asked him several times why in the world he would need to lie low, but he kept saying he couldn't tell us. He also wouldn't tell us who he was or where he was from. After talking to us for about 10 minutes, he finally told us that he had pulled a knife on his parents and was running away. We ended up talking to this kid for probably around 10 more minutes. We tried to convince him that his family loved him and they were probably very worried about him right now, but he disagreed. We asked him if he had any other family in the area, and he told us his grandma lived in the next town over, so we tried to convince him to go to his grandma's house. He seemed hesitant but told us that he might stay there. The conversation ended shortly after, and he walked away. We hopped in my friend's car, and we started freaking out and trying to comprehend what just happened. My friend told us later that night that kid had one hand in his pocket the whole time, and he thought he saw an outline of a knife through his pants. Keep in mind he was also high. We ended up driving to a friend's house, and I called the police. I was on my way to buy my first dog, a golden retriever puppy. I was waiting for the train, and there was an older, feeble-looking gentleman in dirty crimson and yellow robes. He had a walking stick that he had whittled himself, and it looked like something the stereotypical magic user in an RPG would use. Gnarled and funky. And old. He was talking to random people along the platform, and as he talked, he would tap the stick occasionally. I heard him speaking a language I didn't recognize with the lady next to me, probably something from Africa, and when they finished talking, he approached me. Now I was happy as a clam on this particular day because I had a new puppy, but I had been battling, and continued to battle, depression and borderline personality disorder for years. But there was no way he could see it on my face that day. He came over and took a seat beside me, tapped his stick 3 times, looked into my eyes, and told me he had something very important to discuss with me. I was super weirded out, but there's no way I was turning this guy down now, and the platform was full. What could he possibly do? So I asked him what it was. He told me he had been to a lot of places in his life, but he had never seen anyone suffer the way I was. I told him about the puppy and that it was a good day, and he asked me when my last good day was. I looked at him funny, and he just smiled and said, "I know it's tough now, but you're tougher. You can beat the sadness and the anger if you keep fighting, and one day it will be bearable, and you won't need a puppy to support you because you'll be able to do it yourself." I hadn't mentioned sadness or anger or that the puppy was essentially a gift from my friends to motivate me to keep living. I have no idea where he got that information. He tapped his stick again. I thanked him and asked him how he knew. He just smiled again. We chatted about his life for a few minutes, and when the train pulled in, I stood up to get closer to the doors, looked over, and the sneaky guy was gone. No shit. So I went and got my puppy, and I took the guy's words to heart. It's been 13 years. So somewhere out there is a seriously lucky dude, or a stalker, who changed my outlook on life by complete coincidence, or some kind of crazy psychic sage. I'm still not sure which. But thanks for the advice either way, bro. I was tripping on shrooms with my buddy about 3.5 years ago. I freaked out minutes into the peak. We were going to watch Chappie. We were in the theater, and it just dropped on me. I used to eat quarters and hero doses regularly. This was a stem and half a cap, maybe 5 grams, from our older buddy, who had a PhD in some botany-related stuff. I saw a grand total of 3 minutes. About 1 minute into the movie, I go to the bathroom for 15 minutes, trying to calm down in the bathroom stall. I sprayed water all over my face. It did not happen like in the movies, it drenched my shirt. I walked back in, and my buddy asked if I'm alright. I told him no. He pointed at Hugh Jackman in shorts with his ponytail, speaking with his accent, and my buddy asked, "How's that making you feel?" I responded immediately, "Horrible. I gotta go." I went and sat in my car, listening to dubstep on my car's stereo pretty loudly. Every drop was like a pure orgasmic wave. Every buildup was horrifying anxiety. He comes out of the theater, grinning wide, and says we should walk to the buffet nearby. We walk up to the Chinese buffet. We are seated by a guy, maybe 16. We are in our mid-20s. He takes our drink orders, I get a soda, and Buddy gets a bottle of water. I get up and go make a plate of food. My buddy comes up behind me and looks at my entire plate of coconut shrimp and says, "No, no. It needs more color." He then sat down and ate nothing the entire time. I put 3 pieces of broccoli on my plate and sit down. I thought the plate of food added authenticity to our visit. After an hour of just getting drink refills, I asked for the check. This young dude had no idea what was happening. He brings us a check, and it's for 2 adults and 2 sodas. My buddy out of nowhere contests this, still high on mushrooms, and says, "Hey man, I didn't eat anything and only had water." And the guy says, "I have to get my mom." The manager comes up, the lady asks what is going on, and my buddy repeats the same story. The lady looks at her son and goes, "Well, did they both eat or what did you see?" And the kid looks at our souls and says, "They've been here for over an hour, and they've had that one plate of food this entire time. It never got touched." She looks at us and tells us to just leave and don't come back. I tried still tipping this kid for ruining his night, and he instantly tried to break the $20 I handed him. He insisted. I said, "No." I grabbed a plate of food and drank a soda, that would have been the price with like an $8 tip. "Just take it." He looked at us and said, just audible enough over the buffet noises, with the most sinister voice humanly possible from a maybe 5'0" 16-year-old Asian kid, "Good luck." We crap our pants and fast walked away, certain we were going to jail. Never went back. I never knew the ramifications of the mindfuck we dropped on those 2. She knew we were messed up, the kid had no idea what to make of it. But Jesus, come on, dude. He put the fear of God into me. I went home, flushed the rest of my shrooms, and never consumed them again. Bad trip 010, never again. I swear, I am not making up a word of this. I used to work at a movie theater. It was a fairly busy weekend. I don't remember what was coming out, but I remember that none of my coworkers expected it to do as well as it did. I have just cleared out my line in concessions, so I'm waiting for the next customer to notice me and come over. Instead, this family of 6 marches over straight from the entrance. They are wearing shades of orange, but none of the shirts actually match. They all look at the menus above me together, then all look at me in unison. The mother and daughter up front ordered the entire group in unison. After I've gathered everything for their order and I'm about to take payment, the father on the far left of the group extends his left hand awkwardly through the others with a clump of bills. I counted them. It's almost $10 more than they actually need to give me. I notice the only 2 people looking at me now are my mother and daughter. Everyone else is staring at the menus above me. I offer back the extra money, and the old man in the back grabs it without looking. I get this overwhelming odor of glue that overrides the sickly scent of popcorn and soda. I grit my teeth and nod at them, saying to enjoy the show. The group turns without breaking formation and shuffles away down the hall to their movie. I've never seen them again, and I don't want to. There's a woman at work who seems to me to have an animated body. Like the real her is somewhere deep down, and it's just her body walking around with her inside pushing levers. She has dead eyes, where a fully interactive human being should be. It's hard to describe it. I'm not saying she's psychotic or malevolent, but she's definitely absent. Maybe like one of those psychopaths who has to feign human interaction protocols, except she doesn't try to hide them. When she wants something, it's like suddenly she's your best friend who you haven't seen in decades. The next day, she'll walk past you without acknowledging your presence. The next time she wants something, it's the same thing. I used to live in San Francisco and work in Menlo Park, but it was finance, and I worked East Coast hours, so I would leave SF and drive south each morning at around 5 a.m. Now, 5 a.m. is not a particularly nice time to have to walk to your car in the Mission District of SF. The only people outside are people like me going to work or some crazy person, so chances are not good for normal human interaction. Oh, and I should point out that I'm a male in my mid-20s at this point. One morning, I was walking to my car a few blocks away. As I'm nearing my vehicle, I notice another man walking towards me in the opposite direction and on the same sidewalk. I glanced at him from 20 feet away or so, and by all accounts, he looked like a normal guy. As we draw nearer and are about to pass each other, I'm looking down at this point. I kind of notice he turns and opens slowly at me as if he's going to say something. I turn to look at him, and he simply smiles and says, "Hey man, do you want to suck my dick?" I legit did a double take as I passed him and just gave him the most puzzled look as I tried to process what he had said. Despite his question, I didn't feel threatened by him, and he sounded as though he was just out and hopeful, looking for some action. Once I realized he wasn't going to attack me or anything, I just replied a "No, man, I'm good," and kept walking. He started laughing, and then, in a last-ditch effort, yelled, "Well, then, can I suck yours?" At this, I too started laughing and said, "Nope, sorry, dude." And we continued on our separate ways. It was definitely an odd way to start the day that day. It was a snow day when I was about 12 years old. Some friends and I were walking on a main street and underhandedly tossing snowballs at passing cars. I hit a van in the windshield, and it pulls over. A 40-ish-year-old guy gets up and walks up to us. He grabs me by the arm and is screaming at us and telling me he is going to hit me in the mouth. At that moment, a woman pushing a stroller with a baby in it and a young girl are passing by. The mom sees what is happening and steps in, telling the guy to get lost. He lets go of me, and we start walking away. We get about 50 feet from them and hear screaming again. We turn around, and the guy is on top of the mom, punching her in the face. We go running back to help, and he gets back in his van and takes off. One car stops, and a woman gets out to help the mom and call the cops. Another car chases the van down while also calling the cops. The cops catch up with the van and pull him over. The van guy had his wife and 3 kids in the car with him. They arrested the dude and took him in. The mom was fucked up, and they took her to the hospital. We gave a police report, and I was contacted some time later to testify. Nothing ever came of it, so I don't know what happened, dude, but the whole thing was pretty crazy. I lived in the dorms in college, and one day I was walking back to my room after class when this random girl across the parking lot started waving at me. Then she comes running up to me, and the first words out of her mouth are, "Hi, I'm," random name I can't remember. "I've been praying for you." Then she insisted on walking me back to my dorm, told me that she would see me walking, and decided she needed to pray for me. Then she told me about how she had also told her mother about me, so her mother decided to pray for me too. I had literally never met this girl in my life. She apparently would just watch me walk every day and think I was in trouble. The only thing I can guess is that I had red streaks in my hair, and I can have a bad case of RBF when I am thinking, which I usually am, because I had just left class, and that made her think I was a troubled student. I just liked having red streaks in my hair. I never saw her again. This probably isn't my strangest interaction, but I am parking my car at a store when a guy flags me down while pushing an empty cart back toward the store. I roll my window down, and he asks for a ride to his hotel because his buddy left him at the store, and he absolutely has to get back. He then proceeds to tell me he will give me $100 for doing so. I say no thanks, and this guy's face changes from stress and alarm to friendliness as he says, "Oh, okay," and turns away. I'm pretty sure that dude was trying to carjack me, or worse. Doesn't he know about taxis and Uber? He would spend a fifth on Uber compared to what he offered me to go a few miles to a local hotel. Also, why is he pushing an empty cart back if his friend spontaneously left him? Did they have a fight? Did the dude have all his groceries in his friend's car? Surely he could have mentioned a fight. Also, why did his face change so quickly? It's like his act was over. That creeped me out. Coming back to my office from an IT run, I encountered a woman who, if I'm remembering right, was on her way back down from the registrar's office following a discussion about her transcript. I have one of those faces, see? That was the only reason she singled me out. People like to talk to me because I look like I'll listen, and I do, but for the life of me I cannot remember exactly what she said. It was just too all over the place. It started with her not getting the help she needed because of cultural bias, and then somehow she jumped to the origins of our last names and what they meant or something. I think she might have read my name off my badge and rolled with it. It was a weirdly cheerful rant/tangent, complete with intentionally dramatic gestures, like the fists on hips, kind of Captain Morgan-ish explorer pose that went with some relative's very Viking surname. I wound up pulling out the old nod and smile method because I had no idea how to comment on any of that other than to throw in a gentle defense of the registrar folks. Meanwhile, my coworker is watching this whole thing through the glass door to my office, like 10 feet from me, with his face looking about as WTF as I felt. Afterward, he asked me what that was all about. All I could say was I don't. Really? No. In that slightly shell-shocked tone of bewilderment you drop into when you start questioning your sanity. I was leaving the science wing of my college and riding in the elevator with a guy from my class. I had spoken to him once or twice but certainly did not know him personally. I'm a pretty big fan of Widespread Panic, a jam band for those of you who do not know, and from appearance, he seemed like the kind of guy who would also be interested in that particular genre. So, trying to make a causal conversation, I asked, "Do you like Widespread Panic?" He enthusiastically replied, "I love it, the chaos of it all." His response struck me as odd, but the show could be described as chaotic, and truthfully, I was just happy that I had read the situation correctly. I started listing some of the shows I've been trying to find more common ground. And he replied, "Yeah, just crowds running, screaming, the fear, it's a rush that can't be matched." Now somewhat concerned, and with 2 floors to go, I asked, "You do know I'm talking about a band, right?" He looked at me, paused, and simply said, "Oh." We both looked forward, waited for the elevator to settle, and he walked out the door. I was 21, had just moved to Silicon Valley, and was living a pathetic bachelor life. One Saturday night, I went to a quick E-Mart to get some junk food and a spanking magazine. As I was about to leave the parking lot, a woman in her mid to late 30s knocked on my passenger side window. I rolled down the window, and she asked for a ride. At first, I suspected a setup where she would distract me so her boyfriend would rob me from the other side. But nope, she was just drunk as a skunk and asked again for a ride home. So I said, uncomfortably, "Okay, because I'm not good at rejecting people." She got in, asked if the snacks were for my girlfriend, and started coming on to me. Even though I was a horny virgin and she wasn't bad looking, I wanted nothing to do with the situation. Her conversation was slurred and somewhat incoherent, but the gist was that her husband was an asshole, and she was sick of it. As we approached her house, she thought better of getting dropped off right in front. She exited a block away so her husband wouldn't get mad. Back at my empty apartment, I drank Pepsi and ate Cheetos for dinner. I was visiting San Francisco in college with my girlfriend at the time, and we were walking through Golden Gate Park. A couple of homeless dudes over there notice us and start walking towards us, kind of trying to get our attention. As he gets closer, he asks, "You got a light?" And I just say, "No, sorry," and continue walking. He keeps coming towards us and is like, "Oh, Simon, really?" and gets right up to me and outstretches his arm, his hand going right at my face, not aggressively, more like a zombie. He caught me so off guard that I didn't react in time, and one of his fingers went into my mouth. I had no idea what was happening. Then my brain snapped out of it, and I shoved him away and started coughing and spitting and feeling generally disgusted all over. He just kind of stood there and wandered off while we hustled away. It was raining really bad as I was leaving a doctor's appointment. There was this elderly woman who seemed confused or lost. I asked if I could help her or drive her anywhere. She says yes and gets in my car. She barely speaks English, and I do not know enough Korean to help her. So she's in my car, and I'm driving. I'm pretty sure I have accidentally kidnapped an elderly Korean woman. I can't understand her enough to know what we're looking for, but obviously we aren't finding it. We're driving so long that I now need to pick up my friend from work. So I text my friend, "Yeah, so there's an elderly woman that only speaks Korean in the car, so you'll need to sit in the back." I can tell the woman wants me to take her to her sister's apartment, but I can't understand enough to know where that is. My friend suggests I use Google Translate. Thank God for Google Translate. And we get somewhere. My friend and I are concerned at this point. We don't want to just kick her out onto the street if this isn't the right address. But she seems okay, and in the broken English/Korean we've been speaking to each other, she tells me it's okay to leave. My friend then gets in the front seat and laughs at me. I went into a convenience store at the bus station. It bottlenecked near the counter, and it was always awkward to try to walk around people. I'm second in line. The crazy guy in front of me starts arguing with the guy behind the counter about some nonsense. They're screaming and swearing at each other, and I'm kind of just stuck there because I can't walk past him. All of a sudden, a crazy guy stops, glares at him, and then spins around, lifts his leg up backwards, and plops his foot on the counter. He stands like that for like a 10 count, then walks out of the store without saying anything. We just kind of stared at each other and didn't know what to say. I'm technically still hired at this location, but I haven't gotten a shift in months, so I guess I don't work there anymore. Anyway, I worked in the deli section of a grocery store, cutting meat for people, putting olives and salads in containers, and stuff like that. I actually have 2 stories, and I think they happen within days of each other, at least. One day, this woman comes in and asks for medium coleslaw. Okay, easy enough. I package up the coleslaw, am about to close it, and she stops me. Actually, you can just put a few pieces of ham right on there. Sorry, ma'am, that's not how it works. Each product is priced differently, and how much you pay depends on its weight. We can package a few slices of ham separately for you, though. She nods, and my coworker chimes in that he'll slice the ham for me. He slices a piece and brings it to her to check that it's the right thickness. Sometimes it won't be, so we have to check. She throws up her hands, seems very upset, and says very loudly, "I'm not used to buying food this way," and walks away. I don't remember if she took her coleslaw or not. My coworker and I just kind of looked at each other and went back to what we were doing. My dad suggested she was on drugs. She didn't seem used to being a human on Earth. I was also tasked with putting prepackaged salads at the front of the deli cases. While I was doing this one day, an old man in a cowboy hat with a very strong southern accent, so strong that I almost couldn't understand what he was saying, started talking to me. This is weird because I live in the middle of Canada. He has a pie tin in his hand. He asks if I can fill it up with potato salad. Since we do it by weight and would otherwise use a plastic or cardboard container, I see no reason why I couldn't. If it costs him more, it's his choice. I say yes. While adding potato salad to the container, he asks if that amount would feed 4 people. Well, it depends on your portions, I say. He grunts. I turn around to put the container on the counter to put the price sticker on it, and when I turn back around, he's gone. Nowhere is to be seen. I think I went out of the deli to look for him but couldn't find him. I go back and put the container in the cooler, just in case. He returns about an hour later, asks for the potato salad, and leaves.